Hi, Keith O'Neill from Atlanta Institute of Music and Media, and today we're talking about quantization. We're going to get into what exactly quantization is, why do we quantize, and most importantly, how do we do it? Well, that was just terrible. So, how can we fix it? Well, for one, I could just try and play it better, but maybe that's just not possible. I could try and draw in the notes with my mouse one by one, but that's extremely time consuming. To get a musical idea out of your head and into the DAW, it's often easier to try and play it live, but as you can hear, sometimes it doesn't come out just how you want it. So, we can quantize it. What does that mean exactly? Now, quantization is actually a term used in many different fields. You're going to hear about it in mathematics, digital video, and even digital audio. But for the purposes of this video, we're talking about quantizing musical notes during the production or the editing phases of a project. Simply put, quantizing is aligning music material to a specific timing grid. Okay, so let's break that down. We're aligning music material. What that means is we are moving the notes forward or backward in time. Now, these could be MIDI notes or recorded sounds picked up by a microphone, and we're moving them to a specific timing grid. Now, that really means we are changing where the notes were played to where we want them to actually be. So let's hear that beat quantized now. So, why do we do this? What is the point of aligning the notes to a grid? Well, it really comes down to how we typically record music nowadays. Originally, music was recorded as a performance from multiple musicians playing together at once. They were their own grid. The timing was kept usually by the drummer they were playing with, and that made everyone in sync with each other. Now, most music is recorded in parts, one at a time. Whether it's an electronic piece that is built up one track at a time, or a band that we record each instrument individually. That means that the live timing aspect of the performance, well, it's not quite there. And it's very often that things will be out of time with each other. Now, we might try and correct this by having a musician play to a metronome, but that really just gives someone a timekeeping reference though. It doesn't necessarily mean that what they play will be at the correct time. It's these imprecise notes that we are trying to correct with quantization. By aligning each part to the same timing grid, in turn, each part is aligned with each other. With everything in time, not only will it sound better, but it also helps with certain processing. We can set dynamics processing controls like the releases on compressors or gates more accurately if things are in time. We can have time-based effects like delays moving in time with our song. Having things quantized all comes down to one thing, really. As you can see from the example I played, well, it just sounds better. But it can be a double-edged sword. If you quantize too rigidly, you can take away the feel that was intended. Even though we're looking at examples, it's often better to quantize with your ears and not your eyes. So the important question then is, how do we quantize things? Well, we could just try and use our mouse cursor and drag the notes forward or back to where we want them to be. And not only is this really difficult to do, but it's also really imprecise. Thankfully, we're recording things to a computer, and computers are pretty smart and they can do a lot of things for us. More specifically, the software application that we're using to record MIDI or audio, called a digital audio workstation or a DAW, well, it's going to have a lot of built-in features that can make quantizing pretty easy. Now, this will vary depending on the software or the DAW that you're using, but every major DAW will have a feature for quantization built right in. For Ableton Live, you can go to your Edit menu and choose Quantize after you select a clip. In Logic or GarageBand, just select a quantization value in the Region Inspector. In Pro Tools, if you go to the Event menu, you're going to see Event Operations and you'll have Quantize under there. How to do this in your DAW will depend, but you should be able to just find it by going to the Help menu and searching Quantize. The important thing though, when it comes to quantizing, is choosing the correct quantization value. That's that timing grid that I've been talking about. The grid is often shown as these vertical lines in your DAW over the clips or the regions. It's a literal grid. Now, the spacing of those grid lines really depends on your beats per minute or the tempo of your song. When you go to quantize in your DAW, you're going to see a bunch of fractions like 1/4 or 1/16. So what do these mean? Well, if you know anything about music theory, you might recognize these as note values, and they are, but they also aren't really. In musical notation, a note value is representing how long a note is played for or its duration. The note values that you see in your quantization settings are really referring to the timing value in a measure of when you want the note to start. For instance, let's listen to this example of a standard 4 on the floor drum pattern. Okay, we can hear the kick drum hitting on every beat 4 times in a measure, hence the 4 on the floor. The kick drum should be hitting 4 times in every measure, or another way of saying that is they are 1/4 a measure apart. But saying it that way sounds kind of ridiculous, and instead we would say the kick drum is hitting every quarter note, or it should be hitting every quarter note. If it's not, in other words, if it's played imprecisely, we could quantize it. If we wanted to quantize the kick by itself, we would choose the quarter note value from our quantization settings. Now that's not to say the note value is a quarter note, because the kick drum is surely not sustaining for an entire quarter note. The way you can think of choosing your quantization value is deciding where should the notes start. The kick drum in that example should start on every quarter note. Okay, let's listen to that example again, but this time listen to when the snare is hitting. Okay, now the snare in that example is playing only twice in every measure. So we could say that the snares are 1/2 a measure apart. But this is going to lead to a big problem if we try and quantize the snare using a half note as our quantization value. The software is really smart, but it can definitely make mistakes. If we try and quantize the snare to the nearest half note, it's going to move it all the way to the 3rd beat of the measure and the 1st beat of the next measure. Why? Well, musically speaking, the 1 and the 3 would be the half note values of the measure. So we can't quantize our snares using the half note value even though they are a half note apart. It would put them really far from where they should be. Again, the key thing to quantizing is where should the notes start. The snares should start on the 2nd and the 4th beat of the measure. Even though those are a half note between them, we would want to quantize them using a quarter note value, just like we did with the kick. Because yes, they are a half note apart, but they're also 2 quarter notes apart, right? Now, I know this can get confusing, and it really helps if you are able to count musical time. Remember, the main thing about quantization, we have to choose the correct quantization value. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Sometimes it's really just trial and error. We have to decide where should the note start and what value should it be quantized to get it there. Really, we're just rounding. We're rounding the note forward or backward in time from where it was played to the closest spot that it should be. So to choose the correct quantization value, you have to select at what point the note should start inside of a measure. Remember, the quantization value is not referring to the note duration, but the value is really your resolution of available note start points in a given measure. You can think of it this way: when you go to quantize a note, think, where would I want this note to start in that measure? Do I want it to start on the 1/8 notes? Do I want it to start on the quarter notes, or the half notes, or the 16ths, etc.? I hope that really helped you get more familiar with quantization. Remember, every DAW will be different, but every DAW will have quantization built in. Just go to your help menu, search quantization, and you'll find it. The important thing is choosing those quantization values, and it really comes with a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error. You know, if you don't like it, hit undo, choose a different quantization value, and just try it again.